Hi, my name is Darren Lui. I'm the President and Executive Director of a company we co-founded called Aptorum Group, which is a biotechnology company focused on unmet medical needs research and development. In terms of how I got here, I'm based here in London, in the UK right now, together with my family. I came over to the UK from Hong Kong when I was about 12 and 13 years old to study at a boarding school down in Winchester. It was during the 90s, early 90s, where Hong Kong was still under the British colonial rule before the 97 handover to China itself. And since then, I've joined the university, which is Imperial College, where I did my biochemistry undergraduate studies, subsequent to which I had a career change. I joined the financial industry. Firstly, was trained as a chartered accountant with Ernst Young UK. And subsequent to that, I also joined Barclays Capital, where I spent close to a decade in the capital markets industry. With my majority of time, I was posted here in London. Also then subsequently posted over in Singapore and in New York. Around 2016, I was back in Hong Kong and decided to do something that was more entrepreneurial. And as a result of that, together with a very long-term friend in Hong Kong, we started a company called Aptorum Group, which is the biotech company I mentioned earlier. In terms of sort of my life, a lot of people ask me, what's it like to live in London relative to other amazing cities like Singapore, Hong Kong, and New York. I would say actually each of these cities have its own merits, and they each cater to people like us, professionals, and also young families in their own way. London, I find it, for me personally, it has a longer history for me, where I have a lot of friends here in the UK, both at the university and also professional friends. And I find, London has a great balance of life. It's got access to the woods, it's got access to parks, and to the extent, if you wanted some entertainment, it's got access to, great amount of bars and restaurants, So as a result, I actually discussed with, agreeing with my friends that actually London has a very good balance of life as a result. So on this basis, actually, my children being brought up here, I find it they have a very conducive environment to be brought up with some great schooling around here in London. And also, great to travel. I mean, London is the center of, a lot of the financial industry, and traveling to the US and to the Middle East or even to Asia makes it extremely ideally located for these reasons as well. Flight connections are great. And as a result of that, due to my work schedule, I do, before the COVID-19, I do tend to travel at least on a monthly basis. Makes it an ideal location to be based here, where my family is also extremely happy to be here as well. So yeah, that's so far that's how I arrived here in the UK, and hopefully will be continue to be staying here for a long term as well. In terms of what I care about, I would say there are sort of two things. Obviously, our family is a core value that I care about a lot. But in terms of interest-wise, I would say two immediate issues that I do focus on. One is technology development and science, in particular the healthcare industry. The other area is also climate change as well, which I believe it has a profound impact. Not just currently, but also in the future on our generation, and especially on my children's generation and so forth. In terms of science and healthcare, which is the premise of our company, dedicated to biomedical research, I believe is extremely meaningful. In particular, if you look at an area of focus, which my company does, is in orphan diseases. So these are what we call rare diseases. Despite the fact it's rare, orphan diseases actually, some people have mentioned that cancers is just a combination of many rare diseases, rare tumors accumulated together as a landscape. So just to give you some idea, right now there are over 7,000 orphan diseases that have been identified by the various regulators around the world, and almost over 90% of these orphan diseases are currently untreated or does not have effective treatment. Really only 5% of these diseases have treatment right now, and the other 5% is still undergoing various stages of clinical development. Which is why our company, we decided to focus on an area of what we call orphan diseases to try to help the world to tackle this market. Again, as I said, we find it extremely meaningful to be able to find cures or more effective cures for a rare population of this world, which could often be neglected in terms of care and support that they require. The other personal interest is in infectious diseases, largely because of the whole COVID-19 pandemic, and even before that as well. For example, an area that I care about a lot is what we call antimicrobial resistance. So it is what we described as antibiotic resistance, where a lot of the bacteria infections right now has developed some sort of mechanism to cope with the use of antibiotics, the most commonly used antibiotics that we administer to patients. It's the evolution, it's how bacteria evolve itself to counteract the rampant use of antibiotics we have in the last number of decades. And because of the loose standard that we apply to antibiotics to patients, we actually created ourselves created this problem of antimicrobial resistance, because it is in essence a form of selection pressure. If you read Darwin's theory, you know that actually these mechanisms have a way to survive through selection process. So if we use too much antibiotics, the bacteria are smart enough to be able to develop a small cohort of resistance, which in itself can multiply and develop a much larger colony of antimicrobial resistance against these antibiotics. Now, as a result, that in the last 2 decades, a lot of major pharmaceutical companies have not focused on developing the next generation of antibiotics right now. So as a result of that, the regulatory agencies around the world, including the WHO, have now launched global action plans to try to replenish, re-encourage development focus to tackle antimicrobial resistance issues, which is now becoming more and more serious. In fact, there's a study that was done in the UK that by 2050, if we do not focus on antimicrobial resistance, the number of deaths and mortality will be far higher linking to antimicrobial resistance than compared to cancer itself by 2050. So this is an extremely serious issue. And now as a result of that, in the last 18 months or so, various pharmaceutical companies, global regulatory authorities have now come up with just policies such as antimicrobial policies in terms of safeguarding the diagnostics, the use, the development of the drug, and policies around that. So as a result of that, we find targeting this area, antimicrobial resistance, is extremely interesting, and you will see it on the news every now and then. UK, the NHS system is actually constantly tackling and grapple with these kind of antimicrobial resistance, such as what people know as the superbug, for example, which is a form of bacteria that is resistant to most traditional antibiotics. The other area that I really care about is climate change. I believe that climate change is extremely profound in terms of impact in the next generation. A 1 degree temperature increase around the world may not sound a lot, but actually, if you look at the scientific research around this, it actually has profound impact on sea levels, on the climate, and so forth. In fact, you probably have noticed there's been increased number of floodings across the Southeast Asia, in other parts of the world where flooding's usually not common at all. The UK, for example, have now seen hotter weathers, and other hot weather countries are now seeing much lower weather. So now I was told recently, Malaysia have seen a rainforest country have seen temperatures reaching as low as low 20s or the high teens, which is completely unheard of. Now it may be just a one-off event, but I believe that actually the climate change actually is starting to show visible signs of its impact in this world. So as a result of that, a lot of the, even my children's schools is now focusing a lot on climate change and introducing this idea that we shouldn't be wasteful in terms of our use of plastics, our use of our carbon footprint, which I think is extremely meaningful, the promotion of the use of clean energy. And so as a result of that, I think this is a topic where it warrants a lot more education, a lot more focus is required, and people's awareness in terms of how they behave, in terms of how they educate the next generation, should definitely warrant a lot more attention and than we currently have. So I would say that those are the two major areas that really has an impact on me, and I certainly have definitely altered my lifestyle in accordance with these objectives to make the world hopefully a better place, a more clean environment for my children and their children to develop their next generations as well. In terms of the COVID-19's impact on my personal and also my business and family lifestyle, I would say that it's been extremely profound, just like every other households who have been affected pretty much around the world. I would say, COVID-19, firstly, it's so early in the year. It started off in Asia. I was there actually for work reasons in Hong Kong. For a number of weeks, early part of the year, just at the start of the discovery of COVID-19. Since then, obviously I have not been able to travel since pretty much February now, so it's over 6 months. A lot of that now has moved on to home office working, doing a lot of these meetings now virtually, as well as conferences virtually. Which in a way, I think the world has adjusted to that as a new norm. In fact, actually, a lot of meetings now, people are fully comfortable to do these virtual meetings from home, and in a way, in a more relaxed environment sometimes for some people. And it's good that, in that sense, that everyone is accommodating and flexible in terms of arrangements in light of the COVID-19 pandemic. On more of a family level, obviously, the children are also significantly impacted as a result in terms of what they can and can't do. There's now a lot more focus on social distancing, which sometimes makes meetups with friends or school friends particularly interesting. We have now a lot of parents are now very conscious in terms of how we control the sort of numbers, attendance, and people sort of gathering together, that kind of things. There's a lot more consciousness and awareness in terms of supporting the community and government policies in limiting the spread of the COVID-19. My children, we discuss at length with them the pros and the cons of various initiatives we have on COVID-19. People find it very interesting because in a way, it's in their lifetime, they're now able to experience a pandemic, which the last major pandemic we had was probably the Spanish flu, for example. And now they are more aware and equipped now in terms of dealing with pandemic-related issues. I think my feeling is that this epidemic and pandemic will continue for a little while, at least until the vaccines are effective and able to reach the masses of the population. So as a result of that, most of our lifestyle will still be customized and adjusted based on this current COVID-19 pandemic. So probably a lot less flying. I don't expect much traveling is possible, at least until 2021. In my case, we have to readjusted my family lifestyle to support the government's initiatives, not to do anything too rash from that sense, and actually have more controlled outdoor time and in a more sparse environment to be able to handle and limit any potential risks of the COVID-19. On the scientific side of things, I'm fully aware of how companies and government organizations are now tackling the COVID-19. In my area, for example, in the biotech space, we are dealing with COVID-19 in three sort of major areas: vaccine, the treatment, the therapeutics, and also the diagnostics, which I think all three prongs have to move in parallel to be able to tackle this virus in a multidimensional manner. I don't think a unilateral way, even just vaccine itself, is really sufficient to be able to fully contain this virus. Diagnostics is just as important. A lot of the initiatives are now, both private and public initiatives, are now identifying how diagnostics could be improved to rapidly develop and identify not just COVID-19, but new virus or new bacteria in the pipeline. It gives us, a lot of, this experience gives a lot of now policies going forward to potentially, even defend against the next pandemic as well, right? And also on top of that, vaccine is obviously a key area of focus here. In the UK, there's a collaboration between AstraZeneca and Oxford. In the US, it's driven by Moderna, and other countries like China as well have their own vaccine programs, which I think is really meaningful. We must have a effective vaccine to tackle this, but also on the therapeutic side as well, because obviously a lot of those less fortunate individuals who do not have access to vaccines and contracted the virus would still need a therapeutic cure to their infection itself. It's also one of the division of focus we have in terms of our businesses, research and development. And I believe that no one party would be able to tackle all of them. It really is a concerted effort around the public and private bodies around the world together to be able to tackle this. And it will require a lot of sharing of information, breaking down the barriers, in particular political barriers between the countries, to let the science thrive and develop a solution for this pandemic as well. So in that sense, I really hope the world will be able to grapple this virus within the near future. In terms of my future, I would say overall I remain optimistic of the future. I think that it's easy for people to feel depressed or bleak about the future given of the pandemic right now, and the protests that's going around the world, the economic hardship that a lot of people are suffering from. I think in my case, it's and I fully sympathize that. I think in my case, I still remain optimistic and hopeful that the world, will continue to move into a better direction due to the awareness of the various issues. On a personal level, I think that other than focusing, continue to deliver the business, especially our biotech and healthcare business, to hopefully create an impact on the world and contributing my fair share of our contribution, both scientifically and also therapeutically to this world. On a personal level, I think my personal goal is to continue to enrich myself in terms of the new challenge. I'm actually shortly embarking on a PhD course on a part-time basis here with King's College London, focusing in particular in an area called health economics, which I personally find extremely interesting, is the study of the economic impact when it comes to certain drugs or diagnostics technology being developed. In the essence, is the study of how new technology in drugs and diagnostics could impact how the public bodies and healthcare authorities see your drugs cost and how effective it is, and the relationship between the incremental cost of rolling out that particular new drug or technology. So this is going to be up to a 6-year part-time project, and which I find is very synergistic to my day job as well as my personal enrichment. From that perspective, to get to understand how usually the world perceives the new technology being developed economically, and the justification for rolling out that technology to serve the world. So on that sense, not a lot of people are aware that actually a lot of the authorities like the FDA, the European EMA, who are regulatory bodies for drugs, actually takes this into account when developing a new technology. They need to understand in the future when a new technology such as a drug or diagnostics technology is being developed, how cost effective in terms of bringing additional cost savings or incremental cost to the society in terms of the effective of that particular technology itself. And in the healthcare space, usually the effectiveness could be measured as a form of your quality of life. Does it improve your quality of life? Or what they call a additional life year gain from that particular technology as well. So I find that personally very interesting, and I believe that that kind of concept is also constantly being applied, not just in the biotech space, but across the world in other situations, even in the non-healthcare scenario as well. So, so for that reason, I'm continue to maintain optimism, and my goals in the near future is clear in my sense to be able to continue to pursue this study. In terms of where everything has changed, and I think yes, I think the world has changed. Especially in the last few years, on a number of levels. The COVID-19 pandemic has affected, health generally across the population. The local protests in various countries have brought up a lot of corruption-related issues and political issues that need to be addressed. And obviously, the more recent Black Lives Matter movement over in the US have also brought into topics such as equality, racial equality into focus as well. I think that overall, this is pushing the world into a better place. I believe that these are topics and issues that should be debated, discussed, and focused on for our next generation, my children and other peoples as well. It is a very valuable lesson, and these are, I believe, good and strong values that they should be aware of, and draft the next set of policies and the way they lead their lives with more positive moral values, with more humanity values attached to it. I think that does the world need to remain the same? I don't believe so. I think it's probably a form of natural evolution of how our society copes with issues, both government issues, health issues, and economic issues. Having said that, I believe that obviously there's a economic hardship is now common across even the most developed countries right now. The UK government has now borrowed huge amount of government and brought the country into a lot of government budget deficit as a result to fund the last few months of technical recession in the UK, which I think this is economically it will continue to bear some form of hardship on the population in the UK as well as around the world. Although I believe that the spirit of the people is always in the long run positive. And I think the people know that only collectively, by sharing of knowledge, by focus, by increasing our productivity later, that we can hopefully be able to reverse and compensate for the amount of costs that have been incurred up to today as a result of COVID-19 pandemic. I think that the world will change. I think we will have to strive harder in the next few years before it can turn to a better But I believe, the world is probably moving into a better place. I think a lot of these protests dealing with, corruption issues, is a positive sign. It brings a lot of awareness to those leaders as to how they implement their policies, how they utilize their budget with more some form of transparency and accountability is always important across all levels, especially with public positions, serving the people of the nation. So I think in that sense, I'm optimistic. I believe that hopefully, I'm doing my part in changing the world, hopefully more positively, and also to continue to educate and instill moral and humanity values to our next generation, which I think it's very important for them to develop the world in a better place and not to repeat some of the mistakes that have been damaging to the environment and to the humanity that we have experienced in the last number of decades.